Okay, folks, so yesterday I did another video where I just walk around in the park. I called it Walk in the Park Episode 3 because I've done 3 of them. Makes sense, right? And it was inspired by this Reddit post I saw. I'm subscribed to a lot of Reddit subreddits that are about, philosophy, life, existence, and a lot of times people are having existential crisis and they're freaking out, and someone posted something and they said, man, I feel like I'm losing my mind, I'm losing my sanity. And of course I always try to help out anybody who posts stuff like that, because hey, if you're talking about feeling like you're going insane, I'm the king right here. In fact, I don't know how I'm not in a mental asylum. I'm always on the verge of insanity, but it's like, come on, Tony, keep your sanity. Keep going. So, now first of all, why do people go mentally insane? And why do some people's brains work so differently? Well, it depends what you focus on, right? This video is actually about emotions, so I will get to that eventually. But this idea of why do people go insane depends what you're focusing on. See, this explains a lot about where your mental state is at and what you focus on. I knew a girl when I was really young, right? So I was probably like 16, 17. She was same age. And I remember asking her, because I go, isn't it like, do you ever just stare up into the sky? Because, staring up into the sky is one of my favorite activities. It's pretty weird, isn't it? And then I asked her that. And she told me, oh, I don't stare up into the sky. And I go, what do you mean you don't stare up into the sky? Isn't it crazy, like staring into infinity? She goes, oh, no, 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 I don't do that. I go, why? She goes, well, that freaks me out. I can't do that. And that just really shows you, like, depending on what, because see, if you focus downwards here, life can still be hard, and you can still have you can still have like a lot of struggles, but when you focus down here, it's much easier because you're not staring into infinity. You're staring at like problems you can solve, simple problems like, today I must go to work. Today I have an assignment at work and we have to do this thing, and then you do it and you feel good. You get a hit of dopamine. Tomorrow I have to go grocery shopping, and then at noon I'm having lunch with Deborah, and then I have lunch at Deborah, and then at 3 o'clock there's a play date. And so it's like you can focus on simple practical things you're doing in your life, and if you keep your focus on those things, you're generally okay. And if you're someone who keeps focus on those simple day-to-day things, you might look at somebody who says, man, I'm freaking out, man. And you probably think, what the hell's wrong with you, man? Again, where you focus your attention. Because if you focus your attention towards the infinity, it's very easy to go crazy. But if you focus your attention towards the simple daily tasks you need to do, you can manage pretty good. So I think that has a big part of your level of sanity and insanity. Now, this video is about the idea of emotions, right? Because I've always wondered, why do we feel emotions? What is the point of emotions? Of course, when you're feeling amazing, you think to yourself, God, aren't emotions amazing? Because when you're feeling amazing, you're so happy to have emotions, because you think to yourself, God, what if I had this mundane existence where I didn't feel much and I couldn't feel this amazing thing that I'm feeling right now? It's amazing. When you're feeling great and your emotions that are like a 10 in a really great way, it's goddamn amazing. It's like the best thing ever, right? It's like, how is this even possible? This is so great. I feel great. Everything around me is great. And then, of course, the opposite of that is the other, right? Because this is why I always say that there's no simple life hack, like live in the moment. Everything's about, well, no, because there's an opposite to live in the moment, where like you use your thoughts and you think about the past and you ponder the future, because it realistically can't be always living in a moment. So these simple little life hacks, they're always silly to me, because there's always the opposite side to that. So what you're doing is focusing only on one end, and that's not realistic, because that's not real. There's always two ends and two sides to everything, right? So if you want to have emotions, If you want to feel incredible, you kind of have to accept that if you want to feel that range of emotions, there's the opposite of that emotions, right? So the ultimate debate is, how much do you want to feel? Because if, let's say I gave you the ability, do you want to be able to feel emotions up to a 10? You're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I go, okay, I'll give that to you. But remember, if I give you emotions up to a 10, you also have the capability of experiencing it to a 10 on the other side too. So if you want to feel a 10 in joy and excitement, remember you can also feel a 10 in sadness and all the other ones. So just like a disclaimer. So if you want me to give you that, remember what comes with it. Both sides comes with it. Now, the thing that's interesting about emotions is, especially when I was younger, sometimes I would sit in a room minding my own business, and out of nowhere, my emotions just changed. I remember I would always think to myself, what the hell is going on? I'm sitting here just fiddling around on my guitar, watching a TV show or something. Here I am, like 16, 17, minding my own business, sitting, and all of a sudden, my emotions change. I remember I would always think to myself, well, what? I wasn't thinking of what's going on. So today I was like, let me just actually read a little bit about it. I usually like to just kind of ponder these things by myself. I'm not much of a reader, don't really read much, but thought, come on, Tony, just read a little bit on it. So I looked up a little bit on the idea of emotions, and just to see what other people have written about it, whether it's scientific or philosophical, right? So I just stumbled upon the first article I read, and the first article I read is pretty interesting, because the one thing that it says in this article is that emotions are unconscious. They're completely unconscious. Now that makes sense why I would be sitting there minding my own business, and then I would get annoyed because all of a sudden I start feeling differently. And I would be so pissed off because I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with my body? Why do I all of a sudden... Now I realize the emotions are actually unconscious. They happen involuntarily. So now it makes sense why I was annoyed by it, because I'm sitting there minding my own business, and all of a sudden my emotions are different and I can feel them. And I was like, are you shitting me? Why am I feeling this way for no reason right now? Now what's interesting here is that this article says, not everything I read online, with every article, it doesn't matter what it is, I always take it, what's that called, with a grain of salt. Do kids still use that this day? Because that sounds really nerdy. I don't think there's any young kid who says, guys, you got to take this information with a grain of salt. I sound like I'm 1,000 years old if I say that. I don't know what young kids say these days. Yeah, you try to figure that one out. Okay, so the idea is, because someone writes these, who knows if they're the ultimate truth. I'm just reading an article, so let's just amuse ourselves with it. But it is interesting, because it says here that there's emotions. It says here that we actually have 7 basic emotions, and those are unconscious. And what it says here, that what a lot of people mix up is emotions and feelings. So apparently these 7 basic emotions are unconscious. And then it says here we have 27 feelings based on those emotions. So we have emotions and we have feelings, and apparently this article says they're different things, right? So you have 7 basic core emotions that are completely unconscious, and those 7 basic ones that they list here are joy, surprise, fear, disgust, anger, contempt, and sadness. Right, and it says here, based on these, we build secondary emotions, which can add up to a number over 25. See, sometimes it's nice to read to just get another perspective. It's interesting. But what's really interesting, and it says here, are emotions really unconscious? Yes, they are. Yeah. So the basic idea of this article is that it says that there's emotions and feelings, and we have 7 basic core emotions that are unconscious, and then we have a whole bunch of feelings that are surrounded around that, once you consciously think of those things, right? Because the core emotions are unconscious, and then once you start having those, once you start having awareness of those emotions, then you develop feelings around them. It's an interesting concept, I'm open to basically any concept. So to me, if I read it and it sounds interesting, I'll ponder it. So, but this idea of emotions, right? You know, there's also a theory that, like, well, it also goes into the idea of why do we have emotions, and this is something that I've heard people talk about a lot. Is this idea that most likely our emotions are just simply a byproduct of evolution, right? So it's just like an accident that we have emotions. It's just like a byproduct of our evolution. A lot of them are based on survival because it helps us survive, communicate with people, helps us stay out of danger, right? So it's kind of funny if you think about this idea that this complexity of the human condition that we experience is just like this accidental byproduct of just survival, like everything else. So we think of these rich emotions we have, and we think we're like so sophisticated and sexy and like wondrous, and we realize that they're just basic products of evolution for our survival. But it's amazing how much we can do with those emotions, right? Because we create amazing works of art with those emotions, and this is if you want to get really woo again, this is a disclaimer. It's going to go into aliens again, because like I said, when you stare up into the sky, the natural feeling you always have is what else is out there, how many different variations, because we always think of reality as being a guy on planet Earth, and it's silly because what it means to exist in a reality, this experience we have is one of probably an infinity amount of experiences. So if you lived in another dimension of time and space, if you lived on another planet, your idea of what reality is and experiences could be so different than this that you can't even make sense of it. So if you were just dropped there right now, this is your reality, you probably couldn't make any sense of it at all. You have no reference point. It would be so far away from this experience that you literally have zero. So right, so there's these infinite experiences, and in that culture, people talk a lot about aliens, especially those typical ones we see in movies, like the Greys, they're called, with the almond-shaped face, and then like the big black eyes. Like the gray aliens, the ones we always see. And a lot of people in that alien culture, they talk about that these aliens actually, they don't really have the kind of feelings we have. They call them almost amoral. Now, amoral means, with us, with the feelings we have, if we, like if we punch a kid in the face, we feel horrible, like, oh, even, like accidentally. Like I remember when my little brother was like 5, we play fight, we have fun, we play fight, la la la. But once in a while, we accidentally hit each other. He might accidentally elbow me in the eye, I might accidentally hit him, and afterwards you're like, oh no, sorry, are you okay, right? And you feel horrible. Your little brother's like 5, and you accidentally bump him and hit him, and you feel horrible. That's an instant, like, sort of like emotional response you have. Now, people say that these gray aliens, they don't really feel one way or the other. They're kind of like amoral. So it's like you punch a little kid in the face, you don't. You probe them, you don't. Whatever you do, there's like those classic scenarios. They say, I was abducted by these gray aliens and they probed me. And somebody would ask them, how did they feel? Were they like evil? Wow, I can't believe they abducted you and they probed you. And a lot of people who claim they've been abducted say, no, they just seemed kind of amoral. Like they didn't seem like they were getting off on torture. They weren't trying to torture me. They just needed to do an experiment. So they grabbed me, they did their experiment and put me back. They were kind of indifferent, amoral and indifferent, right? Now, to us, that might sound crazy, but in a way, in human context, we can sort of slightly understand that. Like when we talk about somebody who might be considered a sociopath or something like that, somebody who does stuff, they can just kill somebody and they don't really have a strong emotion. Maybe one where, yeah, I just did it. Or like, I don't know, like I'm trying to reference it to a human condition where you might be able to understand what it'd be like. Or maybe you're somebody who feels too much and it weighs you down so much that you can't function, and you go on a really strong antidepressant. And that might really numb down your feelings, because a lot of people say, I had to get off the antidepressants because, yes, they were helping me function, but they literally made me feel numb to everything. So the question really is, if you had the choice, what would be a reasonable amount of emotion that you'd want to feel? Because when we're not feeling good, when we're feeling, you know how there's like a 10 in the best feeling ever? And if you say, if you want to be able to feel a 10, you have to also be able to feel a 10 on the opposite side. So when you feel a 10 on that opposite side and you feel so horrible, it almost doesn't seem real. Like you think, there's no way a human could feel this bad. That's how bad you feel. And at that moment, you wonder, are emotions worth it? Right? That's the irony, because when you're feeling a 10 and excitement and joy, you think, oh my God, emotions are the best thing ever. And then when you're feeling a 10 and the opposite, you're like, God, I wish I could feel nothing. It would be amazing. Please let me feel nothing. And to me, I think about that so much. Like, let's say you're building yourself as a character and you could put the emotion from 0 to 10, right? What would you want to feel? Like, would you want to put your emotions to like a 0 and be like completely like without emotion? Or would you want to put it somewhere in the middle, like play it safe, like put it to a 5? Because a 5 is like, yeah, you feel some joy, you feel some happiness. It's not bad, but then you also don't have to feel extreme pain either, or sadness. You kind of feel a little bit. It's like if you ask somebody who's like at a level 5 in emotions, and you ask them how they felt, one way they'd be like, yeah, I feel fine. And then the other way they'd be like, I don't feel that great, but it's not that bad, right? But somebody, if you put their emotions to 10, they're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. And then the other side is like, kill me now. Please kill me now. This is torture, right? So that's the irony. Where would you set... Hold on, I want to see. Oh, I just realized something. I just realized that this is actually not recording with my good microphone. Yeah, I just looked at my laptop. You see the sound wave? Yeah, you normally see the sound wave, and I realized I looked down at my computer and I saw no sound wave. And I thought, well, I'm fucked. So there you go, my emotions are sad now. See, I'm somebody who feels emotions at a 10, which feels great a lot of the times, but the other times I'm like, please kill me, this is torture. There you go. Now I feel like that, because I just realized. So now I'm gonna this whole video was recorded with the audio from the microphone from the camera, and it's gonna be loud and hissing. There you go. I'm at a level 10 in sadness now, so you can kill me. How about that? Yeah, I think, but I think I got my point across. So the ending conclusion is, other than sorry for the bad audio that's going to be in this video, is if you can choose what level of emotions you'd want to have, what would you choose, right? It's one of those universal questions. There is no perfect answer. Some days you want to have a 10, some days you want to have a 0, and that's the human condition, right? So I'll leave it at that. Again, the audio is not going to be great, but it is what it is, and have a beautiful day. Bye.